Auditor General says they noted that dividend earned from Afri-Exim Bank for the period 30th June 2016 was used to acquire 15 additional shares at the cost of $254,065 in the same Afri-Exim Bank. However, the acquisition had not been disclosed in the notes to the reserve. Now, if you go to paragraph 65, the Bank of Ghana accepts the recommendations of the Auditor General. And my question is, why did you withhold such vital information? And have you taken necessary steps as recommended by the Auditor General since this audit report was made available to you? And if you have, could you share with this committee evidence of exactly what steps you've taken in this regard?
What happened was that the dividend payment of $254,000 actually came in. It was recorded. There wasn't an omission there at all. It was just to do with the flow where there was some delay. What we decided to do was to reinvest the dividends. Why? Because, Afri-Exim Bank is a key institution that has been set up by governments of Africa, Ghana being one of them. And they help us with a lot of trade financing. And then also, if you remember, in 2015, when the CD came under a lot of pressure, they assisted us with some swap facilities, etc. And so the decision was made to increase our shareholding. So it was there that there was some delay, which the Auditor General highlighted, but the entries have been, the necessary entries have been passed thereafter. And so the stock levels are showing that, and we can show it to you if you want.
What resulted in the delay?
If you look in Schedule 2 of the report, towards the end of the report, you can actually see 41. Page 41. You can actually see, the font size is quite small. 257. Yes, so if you see under February, there was that dividend, Afri-Exim Bank, you see 257,153, which came in the record. So nothing was omitted. It was just in terms of the stock position, which will capture it after we made the decision to acquire additional shares. That was where the delay came in, but has since been addressed, so there's no concern there anymore.
Now, who are the fund managers for our investments with GIB, London, and Afri-Exim Bank? And can you share with this committee the following: contract with the fund managers, profits from the investments?
I think we can come back to you with those details if that will suffice. We don't have the contracts and other details with us now, but we can give you the names of the external fund management if that is the answer you want.
Can you do that?
We can give you that right away.
Okay, sure.
Okay. GIB. Oh, for GIB, okay.
Thank you. GIB actually is not a fund manager for the Bank of Ghana. Neither is Afri-Exim Bank a fund manager for Bank of Ghana.
You said they are not fund managers, but you stated in one of your reports here. What are you indicating?
Okay, can you please, where have we cited as a fund manager so that I can put it in context in answering the question?
No, Mr. Chairman, I think we have addressed the issues. What he's saying is that GIB, they are not fund managers to the bank. We have investment in GIB, but then there are external fund investors that help us manage our reserves. That is a separate matter. If, however, there is any additional misunderstanding about it somewhere in the document, it will be good to refer to the relevant paragraph so that we can put it into context.
Yes, you he requested for the contract document. And I believe in that document, you'll be a list of the fund managers. So if you can get the contract document, it will do a lot of good.
Mr. Chairman, if I may clarify this further, we do have fund management relationships with some external parties. For those fund managers, we do have investment management agreements with them.
Can you share with this committee the agreement?
We did not bring it here, but we are happy
at a
to
later
produce
date.
it. Yes.
How soon?
Back to you promptly on that, sir.
Kindly give this committee an indication of when we can have those contracts.
Mr. Chairman, I would say that before the end of the week. We need to cross-check on a few things. As you know, these may involve other considerations, and so we'll consult and get back to you as early as we can.
Dr. Johnson, the auditors also requested you should disclose your acquisition of shares, and that also resulted in the statement of about $254,000. Have you rectified that?
The thing has to do with dividends and invested in an organization. On this occasion, the Afrexim Bank. And so they advise you that you've earned this dividend, and then you want to take a decision on what to use the dividend for. There's an option to increase your shares, and that decision has to be taken by management. And so that time lag between that decision making and then your update of your records is what we are seeing here. So we are saying that that's why you see the flow there. We've shown the dividend when it was advised, but then the decision to make it part of our reserves, in other words, our stocks, was taken later. So we say that because of that timing, you see that this update of the stocks is going to reflect later. And that's why we are assuring you that it has reflected in the second half 2016, and you see that as soon as it is presented to you. So that is how it works. Yes. And this has been reviewed, and I'm sure you'll be updated as soon as the report is presented to you.
Mr. Chairman, on page 5, table S3, you realize that the composition of foreign exchange receipts, bauxite and diamond, is not captured. And this same anomaly happened in 2015. Can you tell us why bauxite and diamond have been left out?
I think this issue about bauxite came up the last time we appeared before you. And in our subsequent response, we explained it, that if the company repatriates the funds through the commercial banks, it will go into their accounts with the commercial banks. It doesn't come through us. So in that case, you will not see it clearly here. But if you look at page, towards the end of the report, which table is that? Table 18, I'm told, on page 35, you'll see there's a table there that says schedule of earnings from dealer commercial banks for the first half, etc. Now, the second row there says other exports. All such, figures are embedded there under other exports. So the issue about bauxite, the issue about diamonds, etc., will show up there. Indeed, after we appeared before you and in getting back to you, I remember to do with bauxite, we wrote to the commercial banks where they have accounts for us to see their statement to be sure that the forex, in terms of the exports, came in. And we saw clearly in the statements that they had brought in exactly the amount that they exported.
You were before the Finance Committee this year, July 26, and in that report, you indicated that Nimon Ghana will be surrounding 30% of their earnings. And that will take effect December 2015, meaning that first half of June 2016, Nimon would have surrendered 30%. But from this report we are looking at, it is not in the report indicating 30% has been surrendered. Okay. So it means by your own report, when you appear before the Finance Committee, you made it very clear by June this year, Nimon Ghana, and that is exactly, it was ratified in the House.
Indeed, Nimon's agreement was reviewed. The central bank was not privy to the new agreement. So as far as our records indicated, they were repatriating their funds all right. So when we got to know that they were supposed to surrender to us in 2016, what we did was we went back to their total productions, total exports, amounts that they had repatriated into the country, and then we looked at how much of it they had surrendered to their commercial banks. There were 2 commercial banks involved. So we did all the calculations. We have the documents, and we can give copies to the committee if it pleases the chair. So we have authenticated that, yes, indeed, they brought what was expected of them by the requirements, and they surrendered to their various commercial banks. So the money was in the financial system, and it contributed to the stability of the city.
It simply means they did not. Because if you are talking about the repatriations, that is true. You are only sending those repatriations to take care of your administration costs, isn't it? So the law, the revision of the law was very clear that they should surrender 30%. So unless you are telling me that in this particular report it is not reflecting, but at the end of the year, the second half, you have that reflect. It's a different thing. But for what you are explaining, yes, it's true. They have to repatriate because for their administrative costs. And that is 60%. You are aware of that.
When you look at their total exports, vis-a-vis how much they repatriated, they brought in more than what they were required, and they surrendered to their various commercial banks. So 2 of them got the repatriated amounts. Now, if we are looking at the second half, it would not appear in the second half report because 1st of July, the bank issued another notice that now all export proceeds, the surrender portion should go to the commercial bank. So unfortunately, we will not see it in the second half of 2016 report. But then we can confirm that out of the monies that they brought in as part of their repatriation, more than 30% was deliberately surrendered. So what we have asked the banks to do, Mr. Chairman, is to link up whichever amount they are surrendering with the export proceeds. So for 2017, we have on record all the amounts that they've surrendered. For 2016, first half, second half, we have records on that.
When the amendment was done for Newmont, we were not notified immediately. It took a while. But the comfort here is that when you go and cross-check, with the banks they do business with, it is clear there that they've been compliant. The funds were brought in. That is the point of comfort. Now, after the 1st of July last year, we came out with some changes when it comes to these surrenders and repatriations. And so now they have to surrender to the commercial banks and not necessarily to us. And so that's why you may not find it in the next report. In all these, the basics is whether those funds came back into the Ghanaian financial system. Once there's evidence to show that they came back into the financial system, then it came to support the foreign exchange market. That we can be sure, we can confirm. But if you want, we can put together the evidence that we have gathered on Newmont. We can put it together nicely and submit to the committee after this meeting. again, I remember the last time we appeared before you. This was a major issue, our projections, and we assured you that we're going to take steps to narrow the variances, even though there were some explanations. Now, let me say that there are some issues here. First of all, this report was put together by the Auditor General, and some of those projections are actually compiled by them. In other words, if you look at the projection itself, we have a different number. No, can I finish, please? My understanding is that that projection there excludes certain items. And so we can give you details on some of those, which when you add, the variance will not be that big. That's the point I'm making. It may be because they excluded certain items, and so you have differences there. So our variances are actually smaller. If I can take you to the next under invisible receipts, for example, to demonstrate why you may have some seemingly large variances under invisible receipts. You see that towards the end of that paragraph, again, it's as though there was an unfavorable variance of about 56%. When we cross-checked, that could also be explained. Remember, during that half year, government had planned to issue some Euro bonds, and it kept going and going, and we had taken that into our projection. So such things come in, and then so you will see some of the variances coming up. But let me assure you that we take these issues very seriously. It came up the last time, and we take it very seriously. So if you see any remaining ones, it is that there's some explanation to it.
What is the effect, the economic effect of the inflows and the outflows that we get, and especially the net position that happens? What is the effect of that? And if it has any positive effect, what is the Bank of Ghana doing as a policy to sustain that policy, positive effect? And if it has negative effect, what is the Bank of Ghana doing to curtail the negative effect?
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Okay, so we are talking about the receipts and payments regime of a country. As you are aware, Ghana is not an island. We deal with other countries. We deal with them in terms of trade. We deal with them in terms of investment. And these are the kind of transactions that explain what we are seeing here. Now, what I can confirm is that when you have a net positive position in terms of other countries, it is good for your country. Number one, it's good for your foreign exchange market. Number two, it's good for economic growth. And generally, it is good for economic prosperity. And so what we desire to see is to see that the net position is at least positive, an increase for that matter. If you look at the period under review, which is the first half of last year, you'll see that in spite of the fact that receipts went up, we were fortunate payments also came down. And so if you look on page 8, page 8, paragraph 13, it says, due to increases in receipts from cocoa and the fall in forex sales, capital and invisible payments, BOG's net position improved from a net deficit of 1.1 billion during the period under review to a net deficit of 393.89. So it was still a deficit during that period. However, the deficit sort of came down, which is still good. But ideally, you want to have a surplus position that is increasing. And that is what we are moving towards currently.
Bank of Ghana projection for cocoa receipts was 623,250,000 for the period under review. But actual receipts were 560,646,737, resulting in an unfavorable variance of 62.6 million. Mr. Chairman, I want to get an understanding of or an explanation of why this unfavorable situation from the governor.
For cocoa, it's a price and quantity effect. What we normally do at the beginning of the year, before the year begins, we deal with cocoa board. So we have all projections, monthly projections for cocoa, and then we have an idea of the world market price. So what happens is that we do continuous review on all these things. So anytime there are variances, it's either price or it's the quantity, the volume that was exported. But then what happens is that we do all these things, and then at the end of the year, we have an idea of total projections for cocoa, and then we get actual projections. That also now comes to inform us on the subsequent year ahead of us what we need to put in the various projections.
If I look at the profile of the deputy governor, the deputies, and then all the line managers, I can't see any deficiency in your competency, such that, Mr. Chairman, we will spend a whooping sum of 1,859,103.27 to fund managers of the central bank, foreign accounts, external accounts, etc. I want us to know, what is it at all that these fund managers are doing outside there that you can't do? That we are spending this kind of money every 6 months.
I just want to assure the honorable member that we do have competencies here, all right. But the issue is not just about competencies. It is about the practice of reserves management. I can share some surveys with you and so forth about how central banks manage their reserves. And throughout, even the biggest central banks do outsource part of their reserves management. And when they do so, it's not because they don't have the competencies, but to also get some other skill sets or some other areas that they think that there are other people who are better positioned to manage. As you started, you indicated that our core mandate is to what? Keep prices stable, and then after that, support the general economic level. So our core mandate is really not to manage investments here, but we do have investment assets on behalf of the state, and therefore we have to manage them. So in so doing, if you look at the size they are managing and the fees that they charge, what I think we have to do is to make sure that we negotiate these well so that we are getting return for money. But it's also important that we make sure that our activities are best in the state of line. That is why I think that we should outsource some of this. First, you are collaborating with what other central bankers are doing. It enables you to invest in some asset classes that sometimes it may be difficult to manage in Accra and so forth. So I don't intend to preach that to you, but to explain to you why I think there's a strong case to still outsource some of our reserves to external parties. Many of the investment portfolios that we manage are what you call bond portfolios. And for bond portfolios, as the honorable member pointed out, the management fees is important. But what we look at is net returns. That is after you have taken into consideration the management fees. And I can't recall any time that we've had negative net returns. In other words, after you have taken into consideration the cost of management, you still make positive returns. But when you are talking about fixed income portfolios, I think you have to talk about it in the context of global financial markets. And most of where we invest are really developed markets. So the return that you get also depends on what is happening in those economies. So it has to be put in context. That's why the Deputy Governor said that we set benchmarks for them, and we evaluate these programs based upon whether they are achieving the desired benchmarks or not. And we also set risk limits for them. So it's not just like we are trying to just earn any return, but these are sovereign funds we are managing for the country. So you have to manage them in the context of a proper risk profile. And I can assure the House, the committee, that that's what we are doing.
And you rightly said we earned interest and we reinvested in the shares, dividends, and you reinvested in the shares. On the ordinary and the normal course of action, there should be a process, board approval, this, that, before the acquisition. I want to find out whether behind the figures, the necessary processes through board and the legal issues were really done with before the shares were properly acquired.
The chairman of our board is the governor. He sort of gave the go-ahead for that transaction, which the board subsequently was briefed about and ratified. So there wasn't any concern there at all. In any case, Afrexim Bank has been prevailing on us. I was at their AGM last month in Rwanda. Ghana is currently one of the countries that own very little when it comes to our shares. Our shares it's less than 2% of the total in that institution. And yet, when you look at the benefits that we get, and they've been telling us to increase our shareholding because then we can get more. If you look at Nigeria, for example, they're getting a lot of projects from them just because they have significant shareholding. So that decision was just a first step. That was the least we could do at the time. We didn't have the money to increase our investment. So we said at least they can take the dividends for now. And while later on we look at how to increase our shareholding there. So that was done. When the surrenders are made to the commercial banks have to give us returns, all right, information on what came through them. In any case, if we need to cross-check whether somebody brought their money in, it's easy. All we do is to ask for their bank statements. Then we just follow it. So we can rapidly tell whether the money got back to Ghana. So it doesn't matter through SWIFT. And so it doesn't matter, whether they surrender directly to the central bank or surrender to the banks. There's a way to still cross-check, all right? And so that framework is still there.
I think if you look at the chapter 13 of Ghana's constitution, chapter 13, I think article 138B, and Mr. Chairman, I crave your indulgence to read this then. I'll see, it says, the Bank of Ghana be the sole custodian of state funds of Ghana, both in and outside Ghana.
Which article?
The Constitution of Ghana.
Which article?
Article 183. Sorry. I think page 122, Article 183B. That the Bank of Ghana is supposed to be the sole custodian of state funds of Ghana, both in and outside Ghana, and may by notice publish in the Gazette authorize any other person or authority to act as a custodian of that person. Please, did you gazette that then before you give them the instructions?
If it's about state funds, it's different. We are talking about private firms, private companies who are doing their normal business. And then the fact that you expect them to bring those export receipts back into Ghana to support the foreign exchange market. Previously, it was mandatory that they should bring it through Bank of Ghana. However, last year we said no. We wanted the foreign exchange markets to be more liquid. We want it to be more developed. Because it's not good that everybody lines up to Bank of Ghana if you need some foreign exchange transaction to be done. We wanted the interbank market, the interbank forex market, to be more liquid and to be more vibrant. So that was why we said you can repatriate through your private banks. The banks have a return they have to submit to us, which gives us information on those flows. We can also quickly, just like the last time we came when we needed to investigate the bauxite issue, we just that afternoon went in, called for the bank statements of the companies involved, and we could track, what is going on. So it's all part of deliberate measures to develop the foreign exchange markets. That's why we are now saying that commercial banks, their surrenders can go through those commercial banks and not necessarily the Bank of Ghana all the time.